Now, just what's the assignment this morning?
Oh, as far as we can make out, the chappie in question is supposed to have had an accident, an industrial accident, at his last form of employment, whereas he injured his spine and one of his legs, and he's therefore suing his employers for negligence. Our job this morning is to find out his general mode of locomotion, whether he walks with a limp or whether he walks perfectly normal, and to try and find out if he's got any employment.
He hasn't had breakfast yet. He's hungry, cramped and cold. It's no sun-splashed Mediterranean terrace. It's the back of an Austin A35 van outside a semi-detached in Mitcham. Whatever the paperbacks say, this is the real world of the private eye.
A neighbouring car around the corner. If our chappie goes by car, then the other car will follow him. If he goes on foot, then our other operator will follow him on foot to his place of employment. Well, it is of course very difficult if one is malingering to remember all the time, especially first things in the morning when one has just got up, to limp down the road. But of course there are many old dodges, for instance putting a small pebble or some such thing under the instep in between your foot and your shoe. This of course you must limp then, otherwise well, it's just impossible not to limp with a pebble in your shoe. Sometimes, of course, they do forget, especially on Sundays and weekends when they might be out with the children. We sometimes have to follow them on picnics and things like this.
When you started work as a private detective, was this the type of work you envisaged, or did you envisage a much more glamorous form of life?
Well, I think everybody, when they hear of private detectives, and myself included, when I did in fact start in this job, envisages a much more glamorous life to hours of waiting around in the back of drafty commercial vehicles such as this. It's interesting work though, and it's very necessary work, of course. Subject just leaving in a black Morris 1100 4890 B Benjamin Y Yankee, walking with a stick and a very pronounced limp. Anyway, 4890 B Benjamin Y Yankee. He's parked in his driveway at the moment. I'll let you know which way he's going so you can inform Romeo. You might get him on standby, over.
Never mind the Sam Spades, the Philip Marlowes. Forget the big crooks and the big crimes. The hunting ground is far more likely to be New Cross than Nice. The private detective, for most of the time, is trying to get little things out of little people.
Number 24 is another television, much the same sort of model. 38, again, same sort of television. If you two can take those, because we might have a bit of bother there. All in the same block. Eileen and I are popped round the corner. Got a couple more calls, one for a means report at number 20. Got to repo a 17-inch television at number 44. So we whip round there now, we can get them sorted out.
Right. Do you want this one, Bob?
Yeah.
You take that one. I'll try these others two, okay?
Okay then.
Yeah. Thank you. Number 38.
In this age of the never-never, one of the surest ways for a private eye to see his children fed is to collect debts for the finance companies. Tramping the stairs, the endless balconies of council tenements, knocking on doors, peering through letterboxes, doing repossessions, or as they're known in the trade, repos. It's not a job for a man who needs to be loved. In real life, this is the way a private detective brings home the bacon at 2 guineas an armful.
Oh, jolly good, you've got one, Bob. Well done, Bob. Which one was that?
This one? Number 24.
What do you have to say?
He hadn't paid because he's just done a bit of porridge.
It's not always a case of taking things. Sometimes a private detective will spend all day trying to give something away. They call it process service.
This pub's a Kingfisher, is it? Yeah. And if I go up that road, I'll be able to get to it okay, will I?
Yeah,
All right.
I'll show you.
Would you show me?
I'll show you as well.
Okay then, well, we'll go up there.
The writ has to be placed right in the hands of the man it's intended for. And often he's not too eager to be found.
Well, why is it you particularly suspect him? Turns up all times of day and night. She's still at school, is she?
This is the third regular, modest, profitable little line in the private detective's bag of wares. The status check. Finding out what a man's worth, where he comes from, whether he's all he cracks himself up to be. Usually the checks are made on people who are after credit. But more and more often these days, it's an anxious father checking on his little girl's new boyfriend. This case has been priced at 10 guineas. And in about 25 minutes, with the telephone book, the voters list, the bad debt service, the hire purchase information service, and a clever inquiry at his bank, they knew enough.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. What did you get?
HBI check, he's paid over a third of it, but
Yeah.
there's 4 months in arrears and they'd like his address. I said we'd ring them back.
Right.
BDS, record of bad debt 1965, county court judgment January 65,
Yeah.
slow payer, and the bank couldn't clear £50.
They wouldn't?
No.
He is the wrong one. Actually, I was just speaking to somebody at the address, and it turns out he's out with his wife. Beside the fact that he's not a company director, he's a partner in a firm which is liquidating very shortly. I think he's quite a bad one, this one. Let's get back on to Dad.
But for some 90% of all private detectives, divorce is their daily bread. Most of the time, it's a gentle business. Their job is to put sinners at their ease, to make them confess, but never to repent, and to take it all down in the jargon which hides all the temper and all the tears. They act as a mixture of priest, family doctor, and solicitor's clerk. George Render is an expert.
At his flat.
At his flat. I mean, you don't know his address at the moment. You'll find that for me, won't you?
Yes.
So, right, Charlie. Now, has intercourse taken place between you since then?
Yes.
I see. Did you ever live together as man and wife?
No, not actually as man and wife, no.
I see. You used to visit you at the home here, did you?
Yes, or I would go to the flat.
I see. Now, are you still associating with him?
Yes.
I see. Now, once this divorce has gone through and you hope that you're free to marry, do you prepare to marry him?
It is a possibility.
Oh, that's very good. I like to put that at the end there because the judge, he does read these things, and I think that he's got the human touch afterwards. And
Do you hate yourself sometimes for doing this sort of work? I mean, people must think you're a bit sneaky.
Well, they do, but no, I don't. I thoroughly enjoy it. You meet all types of people. I travel all over the country. Tomorrow I can be in Scotland. A solicitor could instruct me, or a client, a petitioner could instruct us to go up to Scotland, make observation and get evidence for divorce, you see. I thoroughly enjoy it.
Would you say over the years you've made many enemies?
No, I don't think so. I think I've made far more friends.
Anybody, postman, porter, publican or jailbird, can claim to be a private detective. There are between 2,000 and 3,000 of them in Britain, most of them one-man bands, and most of them part-timers in it for pin money. But clustered around the law courts in London, the industry has its own conservative establishment, discreet men who work mainly on solicitors' instructions. Some will not be seen on television at any price. They'd consider it a betrayal of their clients' trust. Some 300 of them belong to the Association of British Detectives, which claims to turn down 6 out of every 10 applications. Those outside the association say it's just a way of closing up the shop for the benefit of retired policemen. John Walsh, himself ex-CID, was head of the association for many years. He has 60 full-time employees, specializes in protection. Anybody who puts himself into the hands of a private detective may be laying himself open to extortion. Can anything be done to protect him?
Well, he can protect himself, obviously, by, as I've said, going to the solicitor or going to the police. But as a standard in this country, it's terribly difficult to say how anyone else runs his business. Certainly in our business, we have a standing charge per hour. And that charge doesn't vary on whether the job is successful or not. Our charges are £1 an hour plus mileage and out-of-pocket expenses in connection with the inquiry. This varies enormously, of course, if we're working overseas. If you take
£1 an hour would seem to be a pretty hefty payment. I mean, for a divorce observation at this rate, for instance, if you had to watch for 3 or 4 nights, it could come to 50, 60, 70 pounds quite easily.
It can be quite an expensive operation.
What about ethics? Would you break into a bedroom, for instance, or bug a boardroom?
I personally wouldn't deal with a divorce case at all myself. In any case, I wouldn't allow any of our people to break into anywhere. This is quite wrong. I can't say that it's ever necessary to do it. And I can't see that it's ever necessary to break the law to do our job. We've never found it necessary. And it surprises me really at the number of cases I hear of other people in our business, who are supposed to be in our business and supposed to know what they're doing, manage to offend against the law in this way.
What about breaking the law? Would you condone bugging either of a boardroom or a bedroom?
No.
Not under any circumstances?
Not under any circumstance. Part of my life I spend looking for these sort of instruments. It's agreed in our association and in every other respectable part of life that these things are outlawed. We must never use them.
Just as anybody can claim to be a private detective, so anybody can claim to train them. From his university in a Tottenham back street, this professor claims to have graduated about 600 students. Why did he start?
Because I felt there was a need for private detection, and I had the inclination for it. Parts of my family are ex-CID, and from that I think I was interested in doing something about it for tradespeople locally.
Did you know anything about it when you
I
started?
knew really nothing. As a civil law investigator, I got my experience by and large from trial and error the whole way through, learning all the time the hard way.
I believe that you now, or until very recently, operated about the only correspondence course for private detectives in this country.
That is so. Here's the course here. I considered this was absolutely imperative to enable private people who had never had police experience, who wished to come into this field, to have some knowledge of entering the field via a course. This course has been compiled entirely by myself from my own experience over the 40 years.
Now, it's pretty expensive, isn't it? It costs, what, £22.10?
£22.10, but they're able to have this course for £2.10 deposit and £1 weekly.
There doesn't seem to be very much there for £22.10. Don't people accuse you of being a money-maker, a profiteer, in a way?
They do, sir, yes. There are those people who accuse any businessman of being a profiteer, but there again, without profit we can't go on, we can't give service to the people who want it.
Now, the rest of the trade do seem to regard your courses both with antagonism, with a certain amount of ridicule. Why do you think that is?
I think it's largely because they haven't done it themselves, from jealous motives, shall we say, possibly, or possibly from fear of competition. Also, probably I'm putting people in the field who are coming against them in their local localities.
And what's that pink sheet underneath that you brought out with?
This pink sheet is to do with the great train robbery.
It's got £260,000 in big letters at the top.
Yes, £260,000 reward that was offered at the time of the great train robbery, which happened on the 8th of August. I circulated the whole of my members and students on the 10th of August with this information, urging them to assist the police wherever possible, to search various places such as empty properties, dilapidated houses, bomb sites, cellars, gravel pits, Anderson shelters.
Did any of them come up with any results?
Not that I'm aware of, but we had a try. We tried.
The immortal Roll of Honour of the George Girt graduates. We tracked one to Earth in St Neots, Huntingdonshire. His name, Bill Messenger. We found him on the job, cleaning up St Neots.
Mr. Messenger, you got all these certificates, I believe, through a postal course. What did it cost you altogether?
Well, around about £60. That was for 2 courses. The main course was mostly dearest like. The other one was follow-up course.
So nearly £60. That's a lot of money for a council employee to fork out, isn't it? Do you think it's been worthwhile? Have you got that money back yet?
Well, I haven't got it all back now, but if you've got that little extra knowledge, what the next man adds to you.
Do you think you ever will get it back?
Yes, I hope so.
What jobs have you actually had so far?
Well, I've had divorce cases, statutory reports, missing persons, debt collecting. I've had quite a few of them.
How many divorces have you had?
I've only had 1 divorce.
What was that like? Did you like doing that work? Was it difficult to do?
Well, it's all right. And one day I went in to report to this woman. As I walked in the front door, the husband came to the back door.
Did you run?
No, I didn't run. I just walked in natural.
What other cases have you had?
Well, I had no more divorce cases. Missing persons. I had to go down near Sittingbourne, sort out a woman that was supposed to be missing. When we got down there, found she wasn't there. She's down the town here.
Instantly, it's all the time?
Yes, working in the bar.
Now, how much do you get paid for, say, a case like that on the missing person?
Well, we usually charge about 2 guineas.
To go to Sittingbourne and back? Surely
then
that's
they
out
get
of
the
pocket.
expenses on top.
Now, what about status inquiries? How many of those have you had?
Well, I've had about a dozen from one firm, and they're only 5 shillings a time.
Does that cover your costs on those? You can't make much profit on it at £5
No,
an
you
hour.
don't, not really, because sometimes you have to travel 4 or 5 miles and car takes petrol.
In this profession, where the heroes of fiction are always so young, so dashing, so fast, when does a man have to stop? Well, Cyril Fluck, the Amos Burke of West Ealing, is 82 and still going. Steady, if not strong.
How much do you reckon that you can make, then, from being a private detective at the age of 82?
Well, all that I want to do at the present time is to earn about anything from £5 to £7 a week. If I can earn £5 a week, and that will be, what, 3 assignments. If I can get 3 assignments and that sort of thing, I can carry on, and it will keep me employed, keep me away from my wife, who hates the sight of me about the house, and of course bring in an extra few shillings above the £7. We have no rent to pay. This maisonette is paid for, thank God.
What kind of detective work, then, do you do, mostly?
Now, or...
Now?
Now, at the present time, divorce work, taking statements, admitting adultery, not confessions. I'm not a priest. We take confessions and serve writs, and not much county court work, merely high court writs and that sort of thing.
What kind of rewards do you get? How much do you charge for taking a divorce statement or serving a writ?
If it's just a plain divorce statement from, we'll say, the woman named, for taking the statement, 2 guineas, plus your expenses, you see. If you interviewed the 2 people together, the man, the respondent, and the woman named, well, I sum them up. If they're poor people, then the man's got to pay the costs and that sort of thing. I'll do it for 3 guineas. But if I think that they're all right, well, they got it, and then they're not worth bothering about in any case, we'll charge them 4 guineas for the double statement.
Certainly Cyril has lasted longer than most, but he's not so wildly exceptional as you may think. There are many detectives who will confirm that private detection is an old man's game. They are cheap, they don't cause offence, they don't get into rough houses. But inside every one must linger the eternal boy, who loves to roar through the streets after the rotters and their no-good dogs, who believes he can play cowboys and Indians forever.
Southern Base to 2, received. Do you want any assistance yet, over?
Southern 2 to Southern Base.
Perhaps the biggest cowboy of them all, boss of a posse of car-born specialists, is Barrie Quartermain, known to all his loyal deputies as Mr. Q.
This is rather an interesting vehicle, special observation van, see-through glass. This is our female operative, Eileen, tracing specialist. This is Peter, tracing specialist and repossession specialist. Mike Lingard, he does all our car chases and also tracing. Chris Taylor, undercover agent, also car chases. Bob is a car chase specialist as well, for divorce work, repossessions and so on. Bill is our best bailiff, he's a terrific guy. He does a lot of bailiff work, repossessions, evictions. George, he's our litigation manager, deals with all our divorce statements and so on. And here we have Ian, his general manager of our tracing and commercial department, a very good man. Here we have a man who goes abroad for us quite a lot on our overseas cases, also undercover man. Here we have Valerie Jackson. She's the manager of one of our tracing departments and also one of the only women bailiffs in the country. Here we've got two of our trainees, and this is me.
You have a reputation for bursting into bedrooms with flash guns.
I've done this where the situation requires it. I don't like doing it. I only do this as a last resort, but where there's no other method that will work or for expediency, I'll do it. But only when necessary. There's no sadistic pleasure from it. It's something which I don't like doing.
You weren't thrown out of the British Detectives Association. Why was that? Was it your strong-arm methods, or what was it?
I think possibly it was. I disagree with a lot of their policies. I didn't like the restrictions that were placed on me because I was a member, and I told them what they could do with their restrictions.
Tough methods and all the ingenious, unsporting devices that go with them, and they're not for show.
No, everything is functional. Our tape recorders, our wired transmitters, our cameras, our lock-picking equipment, the old standby, binoculars, the tapping and debugging, bugging, the microphones, everything here is functional and used.
One or two of these things look very, very interesting. What's that watch you've got there by your left hand?
This is a particularly interesting piece of equipment because it is a microphone, a wristlet watch, which works in conjunction with a Minifon wire recorder. Plays for 4.5 hours, is fitted under the coat on a shoulder holster, and it's exceptionally good, very, very functional, used very frequently.
What about all these keys here and things that look like lock-picking devices? I suppose that's what they are.
They are, in fact, lock-picking devices. Here's quite an interesting one for the villain or for a man in our profession who wants to get an impression of a key very, very quickly. Can be done with this, safe keys, any type of keys. Here we've got a selection of car keys, although we don't normally need to use these because we've got another set of picking gear here for Yale and car locks. A filing cabinet, a thief-proof filing cabinet can be opened with one of these in about 3 or 4 seconds flat. This is a set of skeleton keys. We've got 7 sets, in fact, for various size locks, and they'll open about 80% of the locks in the country today. People go to a lot of expense to make their house burglar-proof, but I don't know whether they can make it private detective-proof.
What's this telephone sort of sitting here all on its own?
Well, this is for tapping a telephone, not by means of transmission, but by wired means.
What you need then is a cupboard somewhere along the telephone line, is that so?
Yes, this is used in conjunction with this little piece of equipment. All one does is clip onto the wires. We don't break the wires, we don't break the circuit, we just clip on. We don't damage GPO property, and we plug in, and we can listen to two-way conversation and, in fact, monitor it on a recorder.
A lot of fuss just now about bugging. People feeling that their privacy is likely to be pretty severely invaded. Is there much bugging done already?
We do bug. We bug mainly in divorce cases. We are asked to bug in cases of blackmail. This piece of equipment is particularly interesting. Again, we had this specially made for bugging 4 rooms at one time. We can switch over to any room. We can follow a person through the house. We can switch over from room to room like this. The microphones each plug into their own socket. We use a lot of mics we use to bed into the walls. We don't bother to recover them. We just bed them in and wire them into this equipment, onto the earphones, onto a tape recorder, monitor it while it's going on. We can follow people around the house, follow them through the bathroom, to the bedroom, to the lounge, to the dining room, kitchen.
What's that big bag of tools you've got over in the corner there?
Well, this is a bag of tools for, in fact, putting bugs in to find out what is going on. One has to have tools for every possible eventuality, and we've got them here, I think.
Looks like a plumber's set or a plasterer's set of tools.
Possibly so, but...
Do you actually have much rebuilding to do?
No, not a lot. We can use, we very often know the colour of the room we're going into, so we can mix the plaster colour before we go in, or we use plasticine, for which we have a various selection of colours, and just plasticine over the offending hole.
How often is that equipment in use?
Oh, probably once a week at minimum.
Bugs under the mattress, bugs under the boardroom table. We are witnessing a bugging. Obviously, we're not saying where. But this assignment is genuine, frightening, and it does work. We're in the room where the listening in is being done. How has the bugging of the boardroom itself been carried out?
Well, we were going to put in 3 mics, but we eventually decided that 1 mic was clear enough after testing. We brought the equipment along. We popped into the room at about 5:30 in the evening after everybody had virtually, we were quite sure everybody had sort of left it. And in between any security checks, which usually take place about 6:30.
Did you find that out about this building, or is that just a usual thing?
Well, no, on the day before I came down at the time, we would anticipate bugging it, and I spent about that amount of time around, and I did see, the usual security people walking about and checking, looking in rooms and checking doors and windows and things, turning off radiators and what have you, and it's all very simple.
Now, this sort of thing does put you in a very strong position. You could use this information for purposes of blackmail or anything else.
Oh, quite. Yes, there are many unscrupulous private detectives, as in all walks of life. There are unscrupulous men, and this sort of equipment and this sort of freedom to install this equipment does give an ideal opportunity to cause no end of trouble and cost no end of money. We go in for debugging as well as bugging, and we know probably where to look for these bugs.
In Britain, we like to think that this sort of thing doesn't happen. But this could be your office or your bedroom. There's money in this sort of work, and the trade is growing. Before long, the private eye could be a very uncomfortable part of our domestic and our business life.